Parents and teachers protested over the weekend their superintendent's recommendation that 6 school administrators be fired. Superintendent Bob Spence said the elementary principals should be canned because they falsified travel claims for a school trip to Houston earlier this year. But the parents and teachers were angered by the secrecy surrounding the superintendent's allegations. Today, Superintendent Spence defended his action. He claims to have evidence that the 6 administrators were reimbursed about $250 not due them. He claims the 6 lied about the reports during an attempted cover-up.
It would be an entirely different matter if you would go to people and face them and confront them with evidence and say, you know, you're charged with misappropriating $20, and have them say, I admit that. How do I repay? What do I have to do? That would be handled differently than when you confront people with evidence and you receive lies and denials and a cover-up.
More than 1,000 school patrons showed up to find out if the school board was willing to fire the 6 administrators. With printed signs and 2,200 signatures on a petition, the school patrons made no secret of who they were supporting.
The petition does not call for anything, just to look at another alternative and don't act tonight. This petition is not interested in innocent or guilt. We want justice to prevail.
But I appear to tell you that my clients are innocent of the charges that have been alleged against them. We wholeheartedly encourage and welcome an investigation, but we feel like any investigation of these charges now must be by some neutral body. We welcome, as a matter of fact, we encourage you to request that the State Department of Education immediately and forthwith audit this school district, audit our travel claims, audit the procedures that are utilized, not just by my clients, but by the system at large. And we're willing to bear the consequences of that neutral audit, and we encourage you, do not take the action that's been recommended of you tonight. The panel that condemns before it hears is no semblance of justice.
The accused administrators sat patiently while the board pondered their fate during an executive session. 20 minutes later, the board voted 4-1 to accept the superintendent's recommendation and suspend the principals with full pay.
I make the motion that we accept the recommendation of the superintendent as to all individual administrators, and in addition to that, I would move that in the best interest and welfare of the school district and its students, the above individuals be immediately suspended from office with full pay and benefits pending the finality of the decision of the Board of Education.
We're talking now with Lana Tyree, attorney for 5 of the accused administrators. Briefly, can you tell us your reaction to tonight's decision and what your next step is?
Well, I'm outraged. It was a hanging before the hearing, and we intend to seek all of our remedies available.
And what would that include?
Well, we intend to ask for a full-scale audit of the school system, including its finances. We intend to ask for an audit of all travel claims. We intend to proceed into the courts, and we intend to ask for an immediate hearing.
The accused administrators have 10 days to appeal the board's decision. Scott Wallace, Action 4 and more.
Governmental regulations right now. We need to look at it. Plus these retention questions that are
urge that you do that because, believe me, this thing, historically we have socialized the cost of drainage. There isn't any doubt about that. We made everybody pay. And this ordinance basically says one thing very clearly. If you develop a piece of land, and if in fact somebody floods downstream now, or will flood when it's all built, then it's up to you to take care of that stormwater. That's basically what it says, and I think it says the right thing. Now, if we have some problems with the definitions in there, which I understand.
Red
Cross ham radio operators worked throughout the night, helping coordinate disaster relief to people in southwestern Oklahoma.
I guess they better kind of keep on their toes anyway.
Today they are still on the job, keeping track of potentially dangerous weather and passing on that information to the disaster director. She makes the decisions, what kind of aid is needed in what areas, how to get it there fast, and where future trouble spots might crop up.
We have about 50 people out in the field surveying the damage, assisting the storm victims. We've got 2 mobile feeding units working in Jackson County, just providing a cup of coffee and a sandwich to the disaster relief volunteers as well as the victims. And here today we have about 100 people who are on alert. Many of them are beginning to come into the headquarters here now, preparing to mobilize should emergency situations develop.
Comfort kits, these bags containing some of life's necessities, are being readied in case they're needed. They may not be, but the Red Cross's motto is prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Ted Brown, Action 4 in downtown Oklahoma City.
Normally, the Braniff concourse at Warr Acres is packed with passengers. Today, it stands silent.
Frontier Airlines
The only signs of life are down the hall, where a trickle of travelers check through airport security on their way to remaining airlines. Airport officials had to scramble this morning to make sure this security station remained open. Braniff runs security for the East Concourse, so the airport had to make a temporary deal to keep the operation alive. Outside, the Braniff jetways are also unused. The jets are all gone, ferried back to their Dallas home. The baggage handling vehicles stand at attention, ready to service the next flight, but they won't be needed. All 62 of Braniff's Oklahoma City employees have been sent home indefinitely. Airport officials say Braniff's departure shouldn't hurt services much.
Well, we don't think there will be a great impact. In the near term, there certainly will be some, and there will be inconvenience for passengers and so forth. But we think that as soon as these questions are ironed out, that we'll be back to, generally speaking, the same level of service and the same income that we're seeing presently.
Airport officials hope some enterprising airlines like Southwest will pull in and take over where Braniff left off. Mark O'Neill, Action 4, Warr Acres World Airport.
Karen Epperson is training in the United States Army. She is just another soldier, expected to follow orders and work hard, and she is to receive no special treatment. Barbara Owens is also learning the skills of combat. The Army is preparing these soldiers to be tough fighting machines. It takes a strong will, mind, and body to complete this type of training. But the Army is going to start measuring strong a different way for Owens and Epperson because they are women. From now on, being male or female will dictate how strenuous basic training will be.
That's your first 2 movements. On the next movement, you must prepare for combat rush.
Private Epperson is glad the Army is recognizing the strength difference between men and women.
As I understand, they've kind of slacked off on the men as far as their training because there are females in their training with them, and they feel like the females can't handle it, I guess, as much as the males.
Get up closer to your cover, young lady. Keep your head down now. Make a low silhouette, put your feet together. Young lady, put your feet together. Keep your buttocks down, low silhouette, low silhouette.
The separation date has been set for August. Fort Sill does not have as many female soldiers as other Army bases, but women here do end up well trained and ready for battle.
Slick out here, Sergeant.
Yes, it is.
Army officials say there are weapons they don't usually let females handle because of weight. Next week, Private Owens will have to demonstrate her combat abilities in the field, something she has been waiting for. The road to being a well-trained soldier is not easy, despite the sex of a person. And this man's army is not really getting softer, instead more realistic about the difference between men and women. Ed Stewart, Action 4, Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
No, they are in the neighborhood attendance area and attend that school.
And what all schools attend?
Those are children who attend in the neighborhood, and then compare that figure to the projected enrollment.
That's a computer.
Let me tell you guys, projected enrollment is 205, so I.
Which figures did you use in the comparison?
Okay.
What is the 50% you're discussing?
That's right. Try to keep us full. Okay, fellas, thanks a lot. Hey, thank you. I'm gonna try to get out pretty clear. Locked in, he slowed down. Knocked him into me. So I which way the grease came into my car. Apparently he thought he was in front of me enough that he could pull over. Come back over in front of me.
Kingfisher residents got into gear and began evacuating their homes as soon as they learned the two local creeks were rising. Kingfisher and Uncle John Creeks just couldn't handle the runoff from 6 inches of rain in less than 2 hours. The flooding forced the refugees to flee to a shelter provided by the Red Cross. More than 200 families took advantage of the charity's hospitality. Folks were grateful. A warm, dry bed was mighty hard to come by in Kingfisher Sunday night.
Check with the National Guard at the Armory, find out if they have any people down in here that may have been trying to get out, that they've been unable to reach, so that we can get them out with the boat.
So there's approximately five foot of water here.
By daylight, the search for storm survivors continued.
All right, see what I'm going to do, okay? Hi. Come on. I'm going to get down here and sit down, all right? I'm standing on the ground right now, okay? See where I'm standing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Grab your legs right there.
Oh, thanks a lot. Come on, Bill.
Watch them shoot her, man.
Look at all these people, man.
Made it. Rescuers plucked dozens of people to safety. There were a few close calls, but no one was injured by the flooding. While human life was spared, property was not. 64 blocks of Kingfisher were drowned by the muddy waters. No official damage estimates are available yet, but the final tab for the storm damage will be staggering. By early evening, the water started to recede and the cleanup began. It will be some time before homes dry out and life returns to normal. Kingfisher residents will have plenty of time to reflect on what Mother Nature has given them and to wonder if she plans to do it again. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Kingfisher.
The spillage from the South Canadian River caused flooding in a 3-mile stretch along Rock Creek Road in northwest 72nd. A few days ago, the Canadian was just a scenic view for residents. The latest flooding was not a serene sight, as homes and yards were caught in the middle of rushing waterways. Many residents fled the area, leaving most of their personal possessions behind. The Norman police were on patrol, making sure if any articles were lost, it would not be from looters. Action 4's Ted Brown has this report on how the high waters have affected people's lives right here in Norman.
The acreage reduction program, combined with the effects of Mother Nature, has reduced wheat acreage across the state by 1.3 million acres.
The amount of acreage that we'll lose because of high water will not be as distinct, perhaps, as we would if we had drought or hail, in that the wheat that will be lost will be in the low-lying areas and along terraces and in the low areas of the field, so it'll be just percentages of each producer's fields will be reduced because of the rain.
The director of the Wheat Commission adds that the continuous rain could have an adverse effect in other areas.
Oklahoma farmers have a reputation of producing the highest quality bread-making wheat in the world, so we're pretty protective of that quality, but Mother Nature plays a lead role in actually what type of quality we'll have. We perhaps could see our protein levels decrease, our test weights decrease. All those things affect the quality and the price of the wheat.
Kubitschek says the longer it rains, the more farmers will suffer. How much all this moisture is going to hurt them won't be known till the crops are all harvested later this summer. Ben McCain, Action 4, Oklahoma County.
High winds whipped across the Fort Cobb Reservoir about 8:30 last night. A rather sparsely populated area, this marina bore the brunt of the storm. Fishermen on the dock sought immediate cover when the threatening gusts moved in. 2 young boys were overturned in their boat, but fortunately were able to swim to safety. But the story wasn't the same for more than 25 boats that were docked at the marina. The wild weather uprooted the roof on the stalls, causing several of the boats to sink and waterlogging others. In addition, the marina store was ripped apart, resulting in heavy damage. Word of the storm spread quickly today, and boat owners were anxious to compute the damage.
Ours must be out there somewhere, because I don't see nothing else. These are all the boats that were here. Ours was right out, see where that railing goes out? That was a completely different dock out there. Ours was out there in that one.
Employees at the marina are trying to get the mess cleaned up as soon as possible.
Well, we have called the city hall, and they're supposed to try to get some of the civil defense workers out to help us to clear the debris and where we can get up to here, and then we're going to get the records out and notify the people that don't already know.
The scattered debris makes it difficult to maneuver around the storm-stricken area. The cleanup will be a painstaking process.
Now grab it.
It may be days before the marina is rid of the scars from last night's disaster. Carol Lambert, Action 4 at the Fort Cobb Reservoir.
It was around 2:20 Tuesday afternoon when a gunman entered the Wilshire Bank and announced a holdup. Witnesses say he was a white male in his 30s with dark hair and a mustache. He made the bank employees lie on the floor while he emptied the cash drawer and vault. He escaped with a large but undetermined amount of money after shooting out a surveillance camera. Outside, he was spotted by 2 Warr Acres police officers who followed him. 2 blocks north of the bank, the suspect and the officers had a brief gun battle.
Sister and I were sitting in the apartment and we heard some police sirens and we came out, and at that time we heard the police shots, and then their brakes came to a halt, and then I saw the lady policeman on the right side of the car and she said she'd been shot, so I came over to see what I could do, and she'd been grazed on her forehead and through one of her fingers.
The suspect escaped. Officer Pam Moore was injured in the left hand. She was treated and released from Mercy Hospital. Meanwhile, overhead, police choppers conducted an air search for the suspect, assisting officers on the ground. At one point, it looked as though they had him.
5,800 on 82.
What, they get him?
5,800. They were wrong. The suspect escaped again on foot into the surrounding neighborhood. He had left some of the money behind, and he left something else as a puzzle to the police: his disguise. Officers began a door-to-door search of the neighborhood. Residents reported seeing the man jumping fences in backyards to elude police officers. But by early evening, there was no new information. Police had no leads on where or who the suspect might be. The search was called off. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, in northwest Oklahoma City.
Six blows and he fell. Yeah, we see a lot of them in our time, you know.
Got a full house these days?
Well, the investigation is progressing. Of course, we have 3 suspects and several witnesses, and we're narrowing it down to possibly 1 or 2 charges that we'll file later on today or possibly tomorrow. We have what we think is a motive, but we can't comment on the possible motive at this time.
Back in the car, so I reached the car when I pulled my gun, put the weapon in the car.
This new photo of the suspect has now been released. The man is thought to be 30 to 35 years old, about 6'1", 180 pounds, with light brown hair. Though the suspect is still at large, the FBI reports today they are working on some new information.
Well, at the present time, we're trying to determine just how many people were involved in the robbery. We know that one individual, of course, did go into the bank. Well, we do have some suspects, and we're pursuing leads relating to these suspects.
The suspect left the Wilshire Bank in a 75 blue and white Mazda station wagon. The license number is XG5984. Recovered at Northwest 82nd and MacArthur, anyone seeing the vehicle in the area prior to the robbery is urged to call authorities. A $3,000 reward is being offered to anyone who has information that will lead to the arrest and conviction of the suspect. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
It wasn't so long ago that some of these men met on battlefields in Southeast Asia. Now they're veterans of that war and previous ones, and they usually meet only in conventions. But the convention halls may become new battlefields for them. Federal bureaucrats will likely be their adversary, and federal tax cuts the battle standard. These men feel they have earned all the benefits the government gives them, and they say they shouldn't be cut.
Benefits that were granted by Congress for sacrifices to this country still have immense value in this country's moral fiber and its moral integrity as a nation. And I think we must, as veterans organization and all veterans organization, restate our case as to the conditions that were incurred and went through to be eligible to be a veteran or to be a disabled veteran. That's the ultimate sacrifice to this country.
Now the national organization will take their struggle to the Congress, where they hope to gain some strategic victories. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
Firemen arrived at the scene and immediately began gearing up for the battle. Oxygen masks and tanks were necessary to fight the night's smoky enemy. One crew walked in the front door, while in the back, crews kicked in the doors. The firefighters then rushed in with hoses. As one man was spraying, another was knocking out windows. This to avoid the danger of exploding glass when the cold, hard water hits the hot window panes. The biggest danger, however, was the smoke itself.
Oh yes, definitely to the respiratory system, and it was a smoldering fire and it was extremely hot in there. All the smoke will kill you just as well as the flames.
Firemen were able to bring the smoldering fire under control without any injuries. Investigators were brought in. After a search of the house, their preliminary report shows the fire to be arson. They found a trail of flammable liquid spread throughout the downstairs area, as well as a gasoline container. The total damage was confined to the living room area. Estimates for the house and contents are set at $9,000. No one was home at the time of the fire. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Most Oklahomans who visit the state's liquor stores feel they already pay plenty for booze. But if Congress gets its way, consumers could start forking over another $3 for a fifth. Congress is considering doubling the federal excise tax on alcohol. The proposal would boost taxes from $10.50 to $21 a gallon. The State Retail Liquor Association is fighting that tax increase.
If a 100% increase would pass, the state of Oklahoma's liquor industry would suffer drastically, because you're looking at the potential of over or close to $3 a bottle increase on your distilled spirits especially. And to give you an idea, you can take a major brand that sells in the ballpark of $9 to $10, you're looking at $12 to $13 automatic.
Several store owners have supplied customers with postcards addressed to Oklahoma's congressional delegation. The cards allow consumers to express how they feel about the tax proposal.
Well, I think that any money extra money that's given to government now is more money for them to waste. Government's wasting enough of our money already.
If they double it, it ain't gonna be worse. No one's gonna want to buy it because it's gonna be too high. They go back to more or less making their own again.
Liquor store owners and consumers realize they'll probably face some excise tax increases. They just hope for more moderate hikes so that the federal budget isn't balanced on their backs. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Edmond.